Welcome to section 11.1, which is your consumer math chapter. And in section 11.1, specifically going to focus on percents. You're going to learn how to change percents to decimals, decimals to percents, fractions to decimals, fractions to percents, percent change, percent markup, percent markdown, etc. The word percent comes from the Latin word percentum. That means per hundred. So a percent is a ratio of some number compared to 100. So an example of something that you could see would be 15 divided by 100, which would be 15%. Or you could put any number and divide it by 100, and that would turn it into X percent. First thing we're going to do is learn how to take a fraction and turn it into a percent. This is a 3-step process in order to make this happen. The first thing you have to do is divide the numerator, which is the number in the top, by the denominator. This is going to give you a decimal. Once you have the decimal, you're going to multiply it by 100. When you multiply by 100, all that really happens is your decimal point gets shifted 2 places to the right. Once you have the number multiplied by 100, throw your percent sign on it, and you are done. You've converted your fraction to a percent. Okay, so for example, let's say I gave you 67 over 100. So if you were going to change that into a percent, you would get your calculator, and you would first take 67 and divide it by 100. If you divided it by 100, you would get 0.67. Then you need to convert that to a percent by multiplying it by 100. Which would give you 67%. So if the number is over 100, it's really easy. You can just use the number that's in the top. Let's say I gave you 11 over 20. So you would take 11 divided by 20. That decimal is 0.55. You would multiply that by 100, which is going to shift the decimal 2 places to the right, and this would be 55%. Last, let's say I have 15 over 16. 15 divided by 16 is equal to 0.9375. And if I take my decimal place and move it 2 places to the right, that is going to give me 93.75%. Like that. Often you'll be given a decimal and they want you to change it to a percent. If you're given a decimal, all you have to do is the multiply by 100 stage. So that's just where you slide the decimal places 2 spots to the right and then put your percent sign on it. Okay, so for example, if I gave you the decimal 0.14 and I wanted to know what percent that was, you could just slide your decimal place 2 spots to the right, and that would be 14%. If I gave you 89.3 and asked you what percent that was, slide it 2 spaces to the right, 89.3%. And if I gave you 0.7625, that would be 76.25%, just like that. Okay, next, sometimes they'll give you a percentage and ask you to go back and tell me what the decimal place is. If you're given a percentage, you can divide by 100, or you could also shift your decimal place 2 spots to the left to turn you back into a decimal. So for example, if I started with 35%, the decimal spot is after the 5. So I could just shift back 2 spaces or divide by 100. This would be 0.35 would be my decimal. If they gave me the decimal 69.8 and asked me to change it to a decimal, again I could shift it 2 times, which would be 0.698. I think the most confusing ones are when your percent is a decimal. So for example, if I asked you to change a 0.5% to a decimal form, well, 0.5% is the same thing as 0.5%. So if I asked you to switch that to decimal form and you shift it 2 places, you'll have to fill in a placeholder. So in decimal form, this would be 0.005. as the decimal. Be careful because the zeros will get people. So a lot of times when people are asked to do a 5%, often they'll say that the decimal is supposed to be 0.5. That's not right. 0.5 is equivalent to a 50%. So be careful. If it's 5%, you'll have to do 0.05. You'll have to add a zero in there. That's the most common mistake I typically see. So just be on the lookout for it. Okay, another thing you'll have to do in this section of homework is you'll have to calculate percent change. It can be a percent increase or a percent decrease over a period of time. The way to calculate percent change is to take the amount in the last period minus the amount in the previous period divided by the amount in the previous period. A way to say that's maybe a little bit easier is you can take the current amount minus the old amount divided by the old amount, and that will have you calculate the percent change. If the amount in the current period is bigger than the amount in the old period, then your percent change will be positive. If the amount in the current period is smaller than the amount in the previous period, then your answer will be negative. So an example of something like this. In 2010, the Major League Baseball team with the most improved record for winning games was the San Diego Padres. In 2009, the Padres won 75 games. In 2010, the Padres won 90 games. Determine the percent increase in the number of games won by the Padres from 2009 to 2010. Okay, so if you're going to do that, you just have to remember that you take the new amount minus the old divided by the old, and then to make it a percent, you got to multiply it by 100. Okay, so the new amount is what happened in 2010 because that's what they're talking about for the current year. I know it's not 2010 right now, but in the textbook's mind it is. So in 2010, the current year, they won 90 games. So that would be your new amount. The old amount is what happened in the year before, year 2009. In 2009, they won 75 games. So that is going to go in the top and in the bottom. Okay, now when you go to do this, the first thing you do is you want to calculate what 90 minus 75 is. 90 minus 75 is 15. Then you want to take your 15 and divide it by 75, which is 0.2. Then you want to multiply by 100, or you can shift it 2 spaces to the right. 0.2 times 100 is going to be 20%. So from 2009 to 2010, they increased their winning average by 20%. So it was a 20% increase. Another thing that you'll see often, especially out there in the real world, is going to be percent markup. So any of you that enjoy clothes shopping, there's always a markup on your clothing items so that the store can make a profit. In order to calculate your percent markup or your percent markdown, what you need to do is first need to take the selling price, so the price you paid, and you need to deduct the dealer's cost. So that's the price that the store paid. And then you will divide that by the dealer cost. And you will times it by 100 again. So it should kind of look just like percent change. It's the new price that you're going to pay minus the old price that the store paid divided by the old price that the store paid times 100. Okay, so for example, determine the percent markup. Holdren Hardware Store pays $48.76 for glass fireplace screens. They regularly sell them for $79.88. At a sale, they sell them for $69.99. Determine A, the percent markup on the regular price, and B, the percent markup on the sale price. Okay, so 2 problems, same formula. All right, so let's do part A. The regular price. Regularly, you're going to pay $79.88. The store pays $48.76. So that'll go in the top and the bottom, and then you'll times it by 100. Okay, so when you go to calculate this, you have to do your numerator first. $79.88 minus $48.76. That would be $31.12. Then you have to take that and divide it by 48.76. Okay, so divided by 48.76. That would be 0.63828, and it would keep going. And then you need to times that by 100. So when you do that, it's going to move your decimal space 2 spots to the right, which is going to give you 63.82. You can round higher if you want. Just read the directions when you're doing your homework and see how many decimal places they want. So they did a 63% markup for this particular item. Now, when the item goes on sale, how much is the markup? Well, when the item goes on sale, the price goes down to $69.99 minus the original cost for the store divided by the original cost for the store times 100. So again, take your $69.99 minus the $48.76, which gives you, I got to clear, $68.99 minus $48.76. That'll give you $20.23 in the top. And then you need to divide it by the $48.76, which is 0.414, and then you need to times that by 100, which is 41.4, 41.5 roughly. Okay, so they are still making a 41% profit. Let's try one more, and then we'll call it good for this section, and then you can try your homework problems. Melissa Bell wishes to buy a condominium home for $189,000. To obtain the mortgage loan, she must pay 20% of the selling price as a down payment. Determine the amount of Melissa's down payment. Okay, so you need to essentially figure out what 20% of $189,000 is. Okay, so to do that, you're going to take the $189,000 and multiply it by the decimal version of 20%. Okay, well 20% as a decimal is 0.20. So if I take $189,000 times 0.20, I will get the down payment price. And in this one, she is going to pay $37,800 as a down payment in order to purchase this house. Okay, give the homework a try and let me know if you have any questions.